Ah. Once again we're back. I'm so glad to see you. And tonight is going to be quite of a strain. Because I've been spending such a long time away, I'm going to really stretch myself, see if I can't make 2 dishes in this one and a dessert afterwards. I realise, of course, that I'm stretching myself a little bit by doing so much all at once, but I don't think it matters. I've got myself full-leaded right here, and my charger right here in case anything goes wrong. So, grab your friends, grab your frosters, grab your frolicking lambs, and observe. You can see how I've got something cooking there, and you'll see why I'm doing that a little later. What I'm doing is a dish which can be for vegetarians, but they're not dishes to try if you're trying to lose weight. So skip this video if that's you. For non-English speakers, I ought to explain that a toad in the hole is not literally a toad inside a hole, just as bubble and squeak isn't necessarily the sound that bubble and squeak actually makes. I believe that originally it had sort of kidneys, lamb kidneys inside it, or various meats like pigeon. We use sausages nowadays. Using a cross between Mr. Thompson's recipe and my maternal grandmother's recipe in her ration book, we're going to make the batter for Yorkshire pudding. And by the way, you don't have to be making toad in the hole for this. We usually have it over here with roast beef. Traditionally it's served with roast beef, and it's excellent and it's lovely. We measure out 115 grams or 4 ounces of plain flour. I'm just sifting it out here, as you can see. And if you can't see, trust me. See how nice and fine that looks? So into a mixing bowl I'll put that. Make a well in the middle. Crack the eggs and put the contents in that well. Although, unfortunately, I'm just finishing a box, so 2 of the eggs are brown and 2 of the eggs are white, or at least almost blue. But if I die, I'll just blame the chickens. Does that sound like a good idea? I think it does. Teensy bit of shell in there, which I can't seem to fish out again. No, not to worry, I'm sure it'll taste nice. Pinch of salt. Supposed to put pepper, but unfortunately, as may be recalled, I don't seem to have any pure pepper. I've got this turmeric and peppercorn. We'll try it anyway. So a dash of that. I like mine seasoned anyway. Get a trusty wooden spoon and beat all that in. Now, when it looks like this, add about half a pint of milk. Nice and frothy that looks. It's looking more like liquid now. Now, the recipe online that I'm following doesn't say this, but my grandmother's recipe does. Baking powder, teaspoon. This particular one is intended for muffins, but whatever, we'll try it anyway. So in that goes, and we'll mix that in too. Now while I'm stirring this, I would point out that some of the more astute of you might have noticed that this is somewhat like a recipe for pancakes. Or at least British pancakes. I know that the Americans tend to use buttermilk in their pancakes, which it's starting to appear in the supermarkets here, but it's rare unless you go to a farm shop or something. No, this is more or less, apart from the pepper that I put in, of course, this is more or less how you would make pancake batter. And were I making pancakes, this is where I would stop. I'd have skipped the pepper, like I said, and I'd fry it and flip it over, obviously. I probably would have used less flour, but it depends on the size of batches you're making. And also, my grandmother's recipe does also talk about a sweet version of Yorkshire pudding, whereby you mix in a little bit of sugar and some raisins, and then cook that, and then that becomes a separate dish. I should point out that as recently as when I looked at my grandmother's recipe, as recently as when that was written, it recommended kidneys. It's now almost always sausages that we put into toad in the hole. But as I said before, The Yorkshire pudding I'm making works very well with roast beef. Do not have it with chicken, do not have it with lamb, it borders on heresy. I think I might use a whisk. Now, one of the ways it's been surmised that this came about, well, one of the ways that Yorkshire pudding came about was obviously it's a quick way of getting rid of eggs apart from omelette, but also it's a way of spreading out. If you had something like a bit of mutton left off or kidneys in a poor farming area, then it was a good way of spreading it all out, you know, so you still got some fat. I repeat, this is not a recipe to try if you really, really want to lose weight. But it's a good recipe to try if you want to have a nice time with food. Savoury dish, little bit of rosemary, just a pinch, mind you. Too much of a good thing can really overcompensate. About a teaspoonful of mustard seeds. Mix all that in. Now, I mentioned before that this dish usually has sausages in it, and ordinarily I would get my sausages from the butcher's. You could combine a pork sausage with beef sausage, and I get two different kinds of sausage, or several different kinds of sausages. And by the way, you can vary your sausages. You can get, if you're a vegetarian, you can have Quorn sausages. Since you have to order from the butcher's at the moment, I've got a combination. I've got some Cumberland sausages, and I've got some Bramley apple and pork sausages. And those will be the ones that I use in this dish. Alright, put in the sausages, fry them in your fat of choice until they're lightly browned. Alright, now that this has been cooking for about 5 minutes, we'll turn them over. Aha, yes. That's right. Very well. This has been 5 minutes low heat on one side, a further 5 minutes low heat on the other. Baking tray, Yorkshire pudding batter, into the tray that goes, and I'll cook that in the oven for about 5 minutes. Alright, now we put the sausages in the batter after the 5 minutes are up. Now that will stay in the oven for about 35, maybe 40 minutes. And while it's there, I will show you how to make Bubble and Squeak. Now, Bubble and Squeak, traditionally, is a breakfast dish, but it doesn't have to be. In fact, it can be eaten after Christmas or after Sunday dinner. Basically, whatever you've got left of vegetables that you need to get rid of, that's Bubble and Squeak. So called because of the noise it's supposed to make when it fries. It's very nice, and I'm going to show you right now how to make it. You can just boil the potatoes that you put in them, salted, but the more traditional way is to put yesterday's roast potatoes in. So I'm going to show you how to make roast potatoes, and indeed roast parsnips, to add a bit of sweetness now. Cut forward if you don't want to see. You can apply the instructions to just your normal Sunday roast in the same way that you can follow the instructions I give for making Yorkshire pudding. Very well, measure out about 400 grams of potatoes. Make them nice and wet. Peel them out. Eat a good bit of dripping. This is beef dripping over low heat on the hob. Put a bit of salt in. Maybe garlic. Just a little bit, just a teensy bit. I think I'll cut these two big ones here in half. Teensy bit more dripping, just for fun. Turn some of them over. See how this one's starting to go golden brown and crispy. This one, not quite as much. Oh, we're getting there. We're getting there. Yeah, that's lovely. This has been going on for at least 20 minutes now, because it's been on relatively low heat, and they're relatively golden. I'm going to put them on inside an oven, which I should have preheated. While that's going on, parsnips. One parsnip, I should say. Peel parsnip then. Now chop. Put in some hot water. Season with salt a little bit. In go the parsnips. You can see this is boiling, so we'll reduce the heat just a little bit and we'll let them simmer for a further 5 minutes. Now you can see here that they're just about done. They've simmered for 5 minutes, like I said. And I'm going to add a little bit more dripping to the potatoes and then I'll put them in with the potatoes, because the potatoes have already cooked for about 20 minutes. If you're a better cook than I am, and let's face it, all of you are, you're just watching for entertainment, you will make sure that absolutely all the skin comes off if you wish to peel them. But I didn't know what I'm doing, and I'm not a good cook, so I didn't do that. This is how the potatoes now look, and having seen them, I realised that I don't actually need to add any more dripping like I thought. I'll just bung them in. So, by the way, I would not normally cook parsnips with beef dripping. Usually it would be sort of butter, maybe put some sugar over it, but we're not actually making a roast dish today. We're not making sort of a Sunday roast. These are going to be ingredients for another recipe. So if you're going to use any kind of animal fat, make it goose fat, but butter or vegetable oil, probably better. Or rather, the vegetable fat is better if you are trying to lose weight, like I said. Of course, if you're trying to lose weight, you'll probably smash the parsnip, like you would with swede, but I digress. Back into the oven the potatoes go, this time with the parsnips. After 10 minutes, I'm going to turn over the parsnips so that the other side cooks. Use some garlic salt, I think. Wouldn't use too much, though. I'm going to use half an onion, I think, within the bubble and squeak. The other half I'm going to make into lovely gravy. And as ever, my little trick for doing this is to not cut the stalk, because that is the part that causes you to weep if you're susceptible to weeping. I'm only saying this now in case you are just discovering me and haven't been watching the series, because I know I say this in pretty much every dish I make that has onions in it. Now I'm going to take the potatoes and parsnips out and turn the parsnips over. There's one. Yes, needs going into a little bit more. Perhaps I should have cooked them separately. Now the one thing you use in bubble and squeak almost always is cabbage. You can use Brussels sprouts if you prefer. I've got some kale, so I'll be putting that in, and I've also got the remnants of some rather wilted spinach, which you don't traditionally have in there, but as I said, you use leftover vegetables in bubble and squeak quite often, and I've used spinach. I used it in the eggs Benedict that I had the other day, eggs Florentine, and I also had it in the curry dish that I haven't yet put up, but you will see it one day, I promise. And so I'm going to boil both the spinach and the kale now. Some parsley and coriander that's kind of wilting on the windowsill there. Should I put some of that in? Why not? Good dollop of butter onto the parsnips and roast potatoes. Or two. Boiling water in the saucepan. So, boiling water going on there. And into that we put the cabbage, spinach, coriander, parsley mixture, whatever it was I put in here. And you can, as I say, put in other vegetables. Carrots, for example, they're a common one. I'll add onion, like I said earlier. For the moment, we're going to boil this for about 6 minutes. So let's mash away at that then. A few of them you can do by hand, like so, into a nice little pulp. Very well, you can see how nice and pulpy that is at this point. Now I'll fry the onions in a little dripping, which I'm dropping right now into the pan. See how nicely it's starting to melt. In goes half of that onion that I chopped. Now I'm going to drain off this rabbit food here. One of these days I'll work out why I put this on the scales and got vegetable water all over the place. Now I'm going to put the potatoes into the frying pan. Add a tad more dripping. I'm going to take it off the heat and leave it to cool for a few minutes. And we'll go back a little while later. It's a bit later. Now I'm just going to put this in a cool area here. You can, if you are using yesterday's Sunday roast, Christmas roast, whatever, use the stuffing that's left behind. Actually, I've just noticed I have some rosemary and sage over here, so I will do that. Now, taking this good chunk of dripping here, put it into a pan, and while that's cooking, I'm going to get a little chunk, just see what I'm doing here, little chunk of what I've already made, and I'm going to dust it with flour. All right. Hasn't raised as much as I'd hoped, but still. This then is the final product. Toad in the hole with bubble and squeak. Oh, some lovely onion gravy. Bit dry. I think I made a mistake with the baking powder. Bubble and squeak. Let's try it. Excellent. Try it yourself. Miss out the mistake that I made. And it might just be a success for you. Ta-ta! Using a cross between so grab your friends, grab your friends, grab your frosties, grab your friends, grab your frosties, grab your friends, grab your friends, grab your frosted, grab your friends, grab your frosties, grab your frolicking lambs, and observe. Ah, I did not need to get some of that shell in there. About half a pint of milk should go in. No, actually don't. Now you can see that it's boiling, so we'll just reduce the heat a little bit. And we'll let them simmer for a further 5 minutes. Ah. Right here. No idea how well you saw that. Oh, it's only now it's gone on the drain. I realised I could have used it in the gravy. Never mind. Oh, not to worry, there is some left. I shall have some gravy then. By the way... Oh, that just had to happen, didn't it? Hello, YouTube. Just thought I'd have another attempt at this. I should have added that you can, in fact, we can both freeze and reheat bubble and squeak. Takes about 25 minutes to defrost. But I'm going to have what's left over of the bubble and squeak for breakfast now. And I'm going to try it again, and it might even be better than last time. I'm going to try some of it with flour and without. Let's try a fair amount of it this time. This sort of amount. good decent amount of dripping. Alright, good decent amount there, and with that I'll put some of this bubble and squeak right in there. And I will also put some of this into that flour there to try it with flour. Dusting this half with flour, as you can see, turning it over inside that little bowl of flour. A minute or two has passed. Just turn this one over. Here it is then, with some lovely bacon and eggs. The conventional way to have it in with a breakfast dish. The hash brown is nice there. I think I mentioned before that it's kind of our answer to the American hash brown or potato scone. Very nice. Excellent. It'll mop up the egg white. It'll mop up the egg yolk as well. Okay. Next, I'll improve, hopefully, the toad in the hole. Very well, here we are with take 2 of the toad in the hole. Since we have some sausages left and some eggs left, it seems as valid a reason as any other to do it now. More or less the same as before. The first difference is going to be that the cooking of the sausages, before I put it in the batter, I'm going to get some oil and cook them in the oven rather than over the stove like I did before. In they go then for about 15 minutes. So we'll follow the recipe for the Yorkshire batter more or less as we did before, with one notable exception. And by the way, if you're making Yorkshire puddings, you can put them in one of these cake moulds if you want to make loads all at once. Just a little tip if you're making them for the roast rather than for toad in the hole. As before then, flour, half a teaspoon of salt, put in 2, maybe 3 eggs since it's a smaller pudding this time. There. Mix well, whisk well even. Half a teaspoon of bicarbonate of soda instead of baking powder this time. That too is optional. Little more milk than before. A little water this time, I think. Mix once again. Little rosemary as before. Now you can see that the sausages are done, and I've painted a little mustard onto them rather than add mustard seed to the batter. Tip batter on. And now we'll put that in the oven for another 25-30 minutes. You see what it really should look like. See how nice and puffed up that is? It's supposed to raise like that, and it can raise even without the bicarbonate of soda. Even the sausages have sunk in. Ah. More. Excellent Yorkshire. Excellent sausage. Both toad and whole is a success then. So you know which version of this to try yourself if you wish to. Ta-ta!